9 months ago, I posted this on my YouTube channel. Friends, we're gonna build a living space for the next generation of leaders, stewards, and pioneers to thrive in order to... I dreamed about a place that actually embodies the change that this fragmented world that we're living in right now needs so desperately. But at this time, it was just an idea in my head. Today, 9 months later, we are just before the opening of Custodia, our living experiment for an aligned humanity. In this episode, I'd like to share with you the full process of how this vision came into reality, why we collectively are living lives that are fundamentally unsustainable and can only lead to the extinction of humanity, and how here at Custodia we've built a living environment that deeply honors Mother Earth and calls forth the very best from within us. It's a gathering place for visionary leaders, entrepreneurs, artists, environmentalists, and parents dedicated to co-create the world of tomorrow. Custodia is our response to the meta crisis. This is the term with which we can most accurately describe the multitude of problems in the world, on a personal, social, economic, and environmental level. A convergence of many crises that feed off each other and leave us feeling empty, disconnected, and overwhelmed. It starts in our earliest moments, when a child misses out on unconditional love and essential human connection. A deep emptiness is born. This lack of foundational trust ripples through life, pushing us towards short-term fixes, addictions, consumerism, and a relentless chase for external validation. On a global scale, this inner emptiness drives unsustainable behaviors. We consume vast resources to momentarily fill that void, leading to deforestation, species extinction, and ultimately, climate change. Meanwhile, our interest-based economic system, built on an endless need for growth, forces us to keep converting nature into stuff at an ever-increasing pace. And it doesn't stop there. Our digital world compounds the crisis. Social media platforms designed to capture our attention exploit our vulnerabilities, deepening isolation and eroding genuine human connections, even though they are pretending to do the opposite. The meta crisis is not one isolated issue, it's a feedback loop. Personal neglect fuels systemic destruction, and in turn, the degraded environment and fractured communities make it harder for individuals to find meaning and healing. Understanding the meta crisis means seeing the bigger picture. Our challenges are interconnected, and addressing one without the others will never bring lasting change. First time I sensed the meta crisis on a deeply personal level was on a warm summer morning in Berlin in June 2021, when Elina and I held a positive pregnancy test on our hands. For my entire life I know that someday I will be a father, and still this extraordinary moment presented us with many mixed emotions. Why did we feel so much resistance to put a child into this world? Either we give up our lives as adults and care full-time for our little one, or we send him to a kindergarten or daycare where paid strangers, no, this felt so wrong. It felt like a game we cannot win. Especially after having read Jean Liedloff's eye-opening masterpiece, The Continuum Concept. in which she describes a baby's absolutely essential need for permanent skin-to-skin contact within the first 9 to 12 months. Like, this was fundamentally incompatible with the lives we were living. Yeah, it became obvious. We need to change the way we live. We need community. We need other families around. We need other children around. We need nature. We need to fundamentally reinvent our living circumstances. My first attempt at bringing this quality that I so desperately craved into the world were the Thrive Villages. Immediately after the pregnancy tests on our hands, we shared this desire to bring community into life with our social media audiences. The resonance was incredible. Like, so many families, so many couples, singles, people from all walks of life united by their shared desire for community joined us, and we found a vacant resort here in Bali that was empty during the whole pandemic, that was willing to take us. And in the beginning the excitement was super high, but I need to admit that over time slowly the community coherence decreased. There were a lot of leadership issues, and at the same time there were infrastructure problems with the place, and in the end both Thrive Village Bali as well as a second Thrive Village that we started almost at the same time in Portugal were both closed after a pretty wild ride, and lots of tears, lots of learnings, beautiful moments, as well as a lot of challenges. Seeing our shared dream not coming into fruition was very challenging. And to add insult to injury, there was an incredible shitstorm. People thought that I was just starting the Thrive Village to enrich myself, while in contrast, I'm still in the process of repaying people who invested into the vision, even 2 years later. So, this invited deep contemplation. This invited radical honesty with myself. And this led me to the place where I am at right now. I realized that in the face of the meta crisis, it can't just be about us building our own little paradise. It needs to be about being of service and community as a gateway to raise our collective capacities to serve. It was very hard to admit that basically with the Thrive Villages we just perpetuated the same ego games that we see everywhere on the planet. My personal well-being, my dreams, my hopes, my desires, my community, and so on and so on. I felt like we worsened the meta crisis. This is a mirror of the global situation on Earth. We cause more harm than good. Through our narrow-focused, goal-achieving strategies and our short-sightedness, we debase our own substrate. We basically saw off the branch on which we are sitting. Humanity is invited to embrace its proper role. The role it was given by Mother Gaia some 2 million years ago, to be the custodial species of this planet, the caretakers, the protectors, the stewards and the guardians of the whole ecosystem. There is an Aboriginal story about how humans have gotten this role. When our earliest ancestors, Homo erectus, began experimenting with stone tools, the saber-toothed tiger, who before was the apex predator, approached us humans and said, "Now you have the power to destroy the whole ecosystem. May you have the wisdom to steward it instead." This was an excerpt of my first book, Gaia's Custodians, because I believe custodianship is the most important idea of the 21st century. If we as Homo sapiens wish to continue to be a part of this beautiful planet, we must stop our selfish impulse gratifications and begin to put our incredible powers to good use for the whole, for the greater good, for the whole biosphere. Because if we continue on our current trajectory, there is no other option than for humanity to go extinct and countless of other species alongside us. So if you want to explore these dynamics further, I'll link the book in the description for you. It's Living in the Gift Economy. Feel invited to dive in. But after creating a completely new philosophical foundation with the book and all my explorations about custodianship, I still sense that even after the closing of the Thrive Villages, my fascination for building places has not ended. But I began to ask new questions. How would a place look like that is actually the embodiment of custodianship? And the first step on this path was, where would such a place actually be located? What would be the ideal environment for us human beings to thrive in without impairing the thriving of all the other living entities around us? Because as we already explored, our consumptive lifestyles are one of the main contributors to the meta crisis. Building and maintaining our houses is one of the biggest sources of resource consumption. And as custodians, it needs to be our task to serve as role models, to not only preach about sustainability and caring for the planet and so on, but actually practice that in the way we live. So what are the perfect areas where we can live fully in alignment with the planet without any sense of lack, without any sense of scarcity? My answer: tropical mountain regions. Because in tropical mountain regions we need neither heating nor air conditioning. We can live without walls. I'm sitting in our kitchen and our kitchen is outdoors. And in contrast to the lowland tropics where most of Bali is located, we can even sleep under a proper blanket at night because it gets a little chilly, and we can, it's very nice. It's very cozy. It's the perfect place where the whole year round we can live without lots of clothes, with lots of toxic building materials. We basically need so little to live such an enormously abundant life. The ideal place would need to be far away from cities, with fresh air and clean water, and still within max an hour away from other hotspots, so that we don't need to bring all the future custodians here by ourselves, but actually can connect to an already existing ecosystem. Due to the clarity of tropical mountain regions being the perfect space for custodians to thrive in, while putting minimal burden on the biosphere, and Bali being the place that perfectly fits those criteria, and being the place that for the past 9 years I enjoy every time, like again and again, coming here and immersing myself into the island of the gods, I slowly narrowed the perfect region up here in the mountains of central Bali. I visited so many different places, like so many different pieces of land. No electricity, no neighbors, no nothing, just jungle. So 1 kilometer until the next neighbor. Wow. Including the one that I showed you in the first episode of my vlog series, which for a long time was my personal favorite, but then in the end it turned out, due to zoning regulations, that we can't do anything there. But then, just before I was letting go, universe sent me this piece of land where I'm right now. Even before arriving here, like already when I was on my bike riding here with Rudy, about my local friend who showed me this place, I sensed something special will take place today. And yes, it turned out to be true, this feeling that I already had. 2 days before leaving to Germany, another banger hit. I love this place. I love this place. Wow. With a spectacular view of the mountains, with a waterfall in walking distance, with durian trees, with jackfruit trees, lush jungle, you hear it? It's the perfect place. I cannot describe it in any other way. So I quickly met the owner, got to know an amazing old wise man living in this village for his entire life, and I asked him to be the temporary custodian of this land. I didn't ask him to sell his land, which is the norm in places like these. I asked him to lease the land from him, and after this lease, give it back to his children and his grandchildren. And I didn't negotiate. Like, I asked him what amount would feel good for him, and I accepted that. I made a down payment so that the land is off the market. And yes, I'm very sure I could have made a bargain. I'm very sure that because he needed money. He needed money to send his son to university. I could have negotiated and I could have gotten a better deal, but it just felt wrong. Negotiating, trying to take more than my fair share just because the other party is in need was something I couldn't do. Restraining from doing things that would benefit ourselves, although we have the power to do them, is an essential trait we need to cultivate if we wish to respond to the meta crisis effectively. We can extract all the oil, we can kill all the animals, we can cut all the trees in order to earn more money. We develop the intelligence, the brain power to figure out how to do all that. But we need our heads working alongside our hearts. Well, our heart acts as the master and the head as his emissary. How Ian McGilchrist beautifully puts it in his work, The Master and His Emissary. The fundamental problem of our civilization is the revolution of the emissary who kicked out the master. All our technological advancements increased humanity's intelligence, i.e. our capacity for narrow-focused goal achieving, to a level where it way exceeds the amount of wisdom we cultivated, i.e. our capacity to do the right thing that benefits all life on Earth. And not just ourselves, our own in-group. Intelligence needs to be at the service of wisdom, not running the show by itself. With the power of gods needs to come the wisdom of gods, or we will blow the whole thing up. This dynamic is at the core of the meta crisis. Our focus on intelligence, aka narrow goal achieving, like building a successful business, living a fulfilling life, driving a nice car, saving the elephants, you name it, without the wisdom to do these things in a way that isn't detrimental to the whole, can only lead to the collapse of human civilization. And developing exactly this wisdom is what was on the agenda of our first Custodia incubator that I hosted afterwards in Poland, in the beautiful Białowieża forest, the last primeval forest in all of Europe. We gathered, and there was one very special custodian present, and this is David. And immediately it was so obvious that David and I were exactly on the same path, bringing alternative living settings into reality and exploring how we as a species can productively co-create viable responses to the meta crisis. This was what absolutely united us. So we had many conversations, and the deeper we dove, the more it became clear that we were not only looking into the same direction, but we as well have like perfectly like our skills, the gifts that we bring to the table are fitting like perfectly to each other. And yeah, I invited him to join me here in Bali to build the first location of Custodia, and he said yes.
Even den Bali Space für Custodia eben zu co-createn, ist dahin. Und ja, das fühlt sich sehr, 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 sehr stimmig an für mich. Ich habe da sehr, sehr viel Lust drauf und spüre da übelst viel Excitement. Super, super sinnvoller Schritt ist, der irgendwie einfach so diese...
And from that moment on, things took really off. Because with David, I have my like perfect partner by my side to really build magic. David, what's your first impression of the land? I'm very curious. You want to share?
The first thing that comes to my mind is it feels so peaceful. Like it feels so powerful and peaceful. And it feels so expansive that you can look like all around you and you can look so far. And it's so quiet, but not in a not in a noise sense, but in a
frequency sense.
Frequency sense.
Yeah. It's incredible what we achieved over the past couple of months. The amount of knowledge, the amount of expertise, like in building things and like operational stuff he brings to the table is insane. And then as our shared time in Poland came to an end, I flew back to Bali, immediately met with Pak Ketut, the owner of the land, and asked him like to be the custodian of this sacred place. With my even strengthened conviction to be that this is my path through my experience in Poland, through my encounter with David, through our shared co-creation, that this is the path forward. And there was no negotiation or nothing. Pak Ketut said yes to my offer to steward this land not only for the next 20-25 years, what is very like normal here in Bali, but for the next 80 years. For my generation, for my son, for his children, for his grandchildren. To build a place that can serve as a beacon for present and future custodians, where really potent and viable responses to the meta crisis are explored. And I can tell you the kind of humility this gave me, having received this honor and having at the same time received this responsibility, made me level up. I became a different person through that, I can tell you. To not make any compromises, to not perpetuate any of the destructive, harmful behaviors that our species describes as normal these days. So I immediately got to work to figure out an answer to the question, how might we design this place so that it calls out the very best inside ourselves. Everything we design, be it tools, spaces, or systems, actively influences and shapes our thoughts, behaviors, and ultimately our identities. We become what we design. Ontological design underscores the dynamic, circular feedback loops between the external world and our internal experiences. The choices we make in designing our environment have a profound impact on the unfolding of our consciousness. In essence, this concept emphasizes the inseparable connection between what we design and who we are. What is without becomes within. We design the world, and it returns the favor. This asked us to reinvent architecture. Like traditional houses, concrete boxes, even if they are nicely decorated, they build boxes inside our minds. Custodia calls for openness. These beautiful cotton tents, manufactured by Danish sustainability leaders Leonardos, they ensure both a heavenly and at the same time earth-friendly sleep. We basically live outdoors. I mean, you can see the rising sun through the mosquito net directly beside our bed. We build our structures out of bamboo that grew here in the area, and we assemble our floors out of ulin, the ironwood that can last until my son's grandchildren will play here. And our furniture is made from teak wood, all assembled by local Balinese artisans. This, for me personally, is true nature luxury, like the antidote to all the cheap and replaceable that overwhelms our world. We use a lot of earth screw foundations, which leave no traces behind when they are removed someday, minimizing concrete use and soil sealing. Unfortunately, we just discovered them after we built the platforms for tents, whose foundations are done with a mix of stone and concrete. If we would have stumbled upon them earlier, we could have really gone with 0% concrete here on the whole site. But one of the biggest forms of waste are actually products and facilities that stay unused for 95% of the time. Like your own car, your own lawnmower, your own barbecue. They all contributed to resource extraction out of the earth, and now they just sit there and foster separation. At Custodia, we optimize for connection with a beautiful community kitchen with large outdoor and community areas, with a garden, with shared bathrooms, and we share resources, and as a result we get what we truly want. We get community. But this not only gives us what we desire, real intimacy and companionship, we believe that it's the task of every custodian to take no more from the earth than their fair share, so that the integrity of the whole ecosystem can be sustained. That's why through a whole array of regenerative practices here at Custodia, a lifestyle on an ecological footprint of 1.0 or even less is possible. This is a way of life that would work technically for all 8 billion people on this planet within the given limits. Like when we compare that to how the average German lives with 3 Earths needed to sustain that lifestyle, or the average American with even 5 Earths. Like this kind of alignment is almost unheard of in the Western world. We believe that focusing on quality, craftsmanship and durability is not only good for the planet, but it connects us deeper with the beauty of the natural world. Minimalism lets us appreciate more what is already there and take care of all these things that we love, instead of being overcrowded by meaningless stuff. This kind of lifestyle allows us to focus on what's really essential, developing viable responses to the meta crisis and leading by example. We will not transition into the more beautiful world our hearts know as possible, as Charles Eisenstein beautifully describes it, by all of humanity waking up and leaving their exploitative behavior behind. This is wishful thinking and won't happen anytime soon. As models like spiral dynamics tell us, the human psyche needs time to evolve, and we can't go straight to communitarian green or systemic yellow if we grew up in a red war zone or blue Orthodox church. Custodianship is not within reach for the vast majority of people. That's why it's the task of those who have the capabilities to do so to design systems that nudge the behavior of the people in the right direction. Something that is done already by so-called hyperagents, people with an extraordinary amount of power and influence, but mostly for their own gain and at the expense of the planet as a whole. So it's the task of a custodian to become better at the game of power than the current elites, to turn their ideals and values into tangible products, initiatives and organizations that provide viable alternatives. The path of change goes through making the organic, sugar-free, locally sourced orange juice more appealing than the Coca-Cola, and the electric car more sexy than the fuel-sucking Lamborghini. To compete with the extractive businesses of today's elites without compromising on our values. This is what is asked of us. To become the new hyperagents, but not exploit this power and influence for our own personal gain, and instead use it to bring beauty, truth, and goodness into the world. As we already explored, with great power comes great responsibility. Custodia is not a place to escape into the woods and build a nice life just for yourself. Custodia is about building great things. Custodia is about deepening our capacity to serve. And technology plays a vital part in that. I believe it's time to put technology in service to the planet, in service to nature. That's why here at Custodia we share electric vehicles and we practice rainwater harvesting and grey water recycling. And despite our remote location, our Starlink, there it is, ensures the fastest internet connection on the mountain. Alright, so what's the status quo? And what will we work on next? We have 7 beautiful 2-person accommodations, an open community area to connect, to cook, to work, to learn, and spacious gardens for our little ones and ourselves to play in and to connect deeper with the natural world. We have 2 shared bathrooms with the most extraordinary jungle view. We have a pristine river on site that invites you to a refreshing plunge. My favorite morning activity. It's so clean that you can basically drink from the river. The next phase will include a riverside sauna, a spacious shala overlooking the whole jungle and the entire island of Bali, and more community places to be together and to co-create. If what I shared resonated with you and you would like to get involved in Custodia, how can this look like? At the moment, Custodia serves as a second home for Bali-based changemakers. In the future, primary home too. And for our members, we offer 24/7 access to the site. We have a whole array of diverse events here, and you can even host your own containers here on site and bring your clients to this place in the Balinese mountains and have an amazing time here. I will share more about our current incorporation as a Fair Shares Commons in the next video. As a member, you have the chance to become a stakeholder as well, to have shares in the organization and participate in decision making in regards to the future of Custodia. If you're currently living overseas, Custodia invites you to one of our 1 to 2 week long immersions where we work on our embodiment of what we wish to see in the world and at the same time build our unique impact projects that may someday retire today's hyperagents. All further information about the schedule and the place itself can be found on our website at custodia.earth. You can click the link in the description. To gain deeper insights into the process of building Custodia, you can subscribe to the YouTube channel and follow us on Instagram. The next documentary piece is already in the making. It will give more clarity on the future of Custodia, our vision, and how we aim to realize our ambitious goals. Stay tuned. But until then, we would like to hear from you. What emerged for you during today's episode? Please share that with us in the comments. Thank you and see you at Custodia.
We've come so far since we began this love. Been through the trenches, seen so many ups and downs, like we barely even touched the ground. I love you more each day, and I pray I can push my ego out the way, let you know it'll be okay. Yeah. Whenever times get rough, you ain't gotta be tough. I found a way to go back in time, found a way we can press rewind. So I